Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on this very hot day on the first episode of Inform's 2026 webinar series. My name is Samantha Kinstry, and I'm one of the founders and directors of the Inform team, and I'm hosting this session today. I'd like to introduce you to my two co-presenters, Steve Offerbully, who leads on the strategy and tech side of transformation, and Archie Clark, one of our product delivery managers with a long background in the people side of change. There's an awful lot of conversation around the technology itself, and rightly so. My LinkedIn feed is bursting at the seams with posts about AI. But for most organisations, the harder question is becoming less about whether AI can do something and much more about how people understand it, trust it and use it. And this session is for leaders who are thinking about how to support their people through that shift. We'll focus on what's changing, what organisations are experiencing, what leaders need to understand, and the practical steps that help build confidence. So we're going to keep today's session focused around 4 areas. Firstly, why AI feels different. We'll look at how AI changes the way work starts, develops, and improves. Secondly, the adoption gap. We'll explore where organisations can get stuck between access, confidence, guidance, and of course, value. Third, how leaders build trust. We'll look at the role leaders play in setting direction, communicating honestly, and supporting people through change. And finally, next steps. We'll share practical actions leaders can take to build readiness and confidence. The aim for today is for you to leave with a clearer way to talk about AI with your people and a practical view of what readiness looks like.
So essentially, we need people to understand exactly what AI means for their work, and they need to know where the tools like Copilot actually fit into their day-to-day. And they need confidence in how to use them safely. So we have a lot of conversations with clients, making sure that AI is purely safe and is ready for them. And also they need clarity on where human judgment remains essential. And we'll be talking a little bit later on about that. So if organizations approach AI as just a license rollout, they may create access, but actually access alone doesn't create that value. And that value actually comes when people understand the purpose, they feel supported, and they can actually apply AI to real work in a useful way.
So AI feels different because it's really changing the shape of work itself. So with many previous technology changes, so organizations introducing a new system, whether it's CRM or ERP, people still did the same job. They just did it somewhere different. AI changes the role of the human in that process. So people are spending less time starting from a blank page, more time reviewing, refining, questioning, and applying judgment. And that's a meaningful change in how work gets done. So time to value is much faster, and the human role is shifting because the cognitive load of the task is moving from production to review and judgment. And that's a skills transition. And knowing how to effectively use AI is key. There's an assumption that AI will drive productivity gains, and those gains are real in the right conditions, and AI can help people complete tasks faster and improve the quality of the work. But the important part is the gains depend on human expertise, and I think that gets lost sometimes in the discourse around AI. People who understand the domain are better placed to guide the tool, challenge the output, spot the problems. And researchers who study this will refer to often inside and outside the frontier. So inside the frontier being tasks that an AI can do very effectively that genuinely move the productivity needle. Outside the frontier are those tasks that look like an AI can do them, but actually exceed its capabilities. And those are the situations where we often see people who rely on AI without enough context or critical review end up producing that weaker work. So the leadership message isn't simply AI will make everyone more productive. The stronger message is actually AI will help people work better when they have the right skills, context, guidance, and confidence. And we see this in the wider research as well. So a study from this year by the National Bureau of Economic Research surveyed nearly 6,000 senior executives across the US, UK, Germany, and Australia. And it found that 69% of the firms are actively using AI, and that's actually up to 71% just in the UK. 89% of the firms report no productivity impact, though, from AI over the last 3 years. But that doesn't mean that AI lacks value, what it actually suggests is many organizations are still in the early stages of turning access into better ways of working. You can't simply deploy an AI tool and expect the productivity gains at an organizational level to follow. Organizations may have the technology available, but the policy, skills, communications, readiness, data readiness, confidence often move more slowly. And that gap is where the confusion appears. So what does using AI in the right way look like at an individual level? So a helpful way to think about AI is to keep the machine in the middle. So people bring the original thinking, the context, and the intent, and they essentially bookend the activity that the AI does. So the AI can challenge that thinking, suggest alternatives, and help build that first draft. But people still refine the output, make the judgment calls, and adapt the work to the situation. And that's where the value comes from. AI supports the process, but human judgment shapes the outcome. If you were to scale AI use up to an organizational level, organizations need to understand their readiness across 3 areas. So technology, process, and people. Technology matters, but it's not just about the tools. Organizations also need confidence in their data, their security, their governance, and their permissions. So AI tools can often expose problems that already exist. So poor information structures, weak permissions, unclear SharePoint configurations quickly become more visible when AI starts drawing on that content. Processes matter too. Are workflows clear? Can organizations articulate what their value streams are and where value is truly generated? Are governance and approval routes understood? Is learning connected to real work? And people readiness is just as important. Do leaders have a clear narrative around AI? Do managers understand how to support their teams in using AI? Do people understand what they can actually use? Are teams building confidence, or are they simply just being given access to a tool? And we often see this in regulated environments. This is not an uncommon situation. There's an appetite to use AI, but organizations need confidence across people, process, and technology before they scale. Readiness doesn't just mean a technology readiness, it's an organizational readiness for change. And that is the thing that gives people a safer route to explore AI whilst mitigating risks. I'm going to pass to Archie now, who's going to speak to the people readiness in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Steve. So really to draw down on that people element, I think it's clear, and we know this from all types of transformation, not just AI transformation as well, but people aren't always starting from the same place. And this is what makes any type of change complex, but even more so, I think, in the case of AI. So some people will be excited. They're already probably experimenting with AI. They may use it in their personal lives. And they may already realize actually how AI might help them in their day job. And they may even be putting pressure on leadership to have an AI strategy because they're super excited to start using it. Some will be potentially unsure. So they want to use the tools, or they want to use the tools in theory, but they don't really know where to start. And also they're potentially a little bit cautious about what's allowed. So they don't know the guardrails, they don't know the guidelines, all of that sort of stuff. There may be some people who are worried. They may be asking what AI means for their role, their skills, or their future. Is it coming for their jobs? All of those sort of questions that we know are in the fray when talking about AI. And people may have those concerns, some concerns of which they may not even want to raise. So there may be people who are worried about having to learn this new skill, prompting and using AI and learning how it works. So that is a real potential thing to crop up for people as well. And of course, there are some people who are just simply tired of change. And I think change fatigue is something that's quite often overlooked. We've been through a lot of change over the last 6 years. I know COVID seems like a very long time ago. A lot of organizations had to adapt very quickly to working from home, or at least working from home partially ever since then. Some people feel like they've only just kind of got used to that change of pace of working from home. And now they're being introduced to AI and having to learn how to do that as well. So completely understand and appreciate that there is a lot of change, and some people may be frustrated or just not ready to start looking at that change. So I think there's a lot of different areas where people could sit, but I think the good or great adoption, I should say, actually recognizes all the differences, and a single launch message it's not going to meet everyone where they are. So this is why the importance of change management, the importance of good communication is integral to make sure that all of these people are heard, listened to, and able to be supported. So this slide here, this shows one of the main traps with AI adoption. So starting with access, a lot of people may know that Copilot exists and they may have access. They may have even attended your wonderful training sessions that you've put on. But awareness is not the same as adoption. So adoption happens when people understand where the tool fits and feel confident using it and are able to build new habits around that real work. And this is where many organizations get stuck. So technology rollouts happen, but people still need the context, examples, permission, and support. And this is why adoption needs more than just training in itself. As I said on that previous slide, it needs that communication. It needs that sense of community, trying things out, experimenting, potentially getting things wrong, finding better ways of doing things, and of course that reinforcement as well. So there's two common traps, both on the left and right of the slide, that organizations can fall into. One is potentially locking everything down, and we completely understand why this happens. Organizations may feel like this is safer, especially if they haven't had an AI strategy put in place. It's a lot easier to lock everything down in the meantime while you're getting your ducks in a row to be able to look at that. But actually, although this seems like a safe option on the surface, it can actually lead to a lot of frustration. And we know from various different Microsoft reports and other AI industry reports that when this happens, a lot of employees and colleagues will be quite frustrated and will look to bring their own AI tools to work, which obviously represents a shadow IT or a shadow AI, I should say, security or potential security risk. The other end of the spectrum on the right-hand side is when things are too wide open and there's no locked down policy on what can be used or what can't be used. It's a bit of a free-for-all in terms of AI. And although that's great because it gives employees the wonderful choice of which AI tool they want to use, it can lead to, again, that potential security risk as everything's open, but also some confusion and inconsistent use as well across the board. So some people may be using tools in a certain way, others may not know what to use. So the best route, of course, is that Goldilocks zone, that middle spot, that sweet spot in the middle, which is that guided adoption, where there are clear guardrails, everyone knows how to use the tools safely, and the examples are actually tied to real work examples as well, and how it will benefit them. So I guess in all on this slide, people really need enough freedom to be able to learn and enough structure to enjoy and use AI responsibly without necessarily being too constrained. So this is a simple way to think about AI adoption. Essentially, clarity builds trust, and people really need a clear message on why AI matters. So this is what the organization is trying to achieve and what responsible use looks like, but also how is this going to benefit the individual? We know that this AI adoption, true AI adoption, has to be at an individual level as well as at an organization level as well. Then we move on to the confidence. So confidence builds with more use, and actually people need safe ways to practice, learn, ask questions, experiment, learn fast. And the training really matters here, but actually so do examples. And things that we've seen that have been really successful, for example, are manager support and permission to try. So having allocated time to be able to try different use cases for AI and just to see what works for you. And then lastly, habit actually builds value. So when value comes when AI becomes part of a real workflow in your day-to-day. So again, rather than having separate experiments, get people to try all at once. So this could be working to actually integrate Copilot use throughout your day-to-day. So it could be starting in the morning, using Copilot to summarize emails, and just getting into the habit of actually how it will help you, how it will support you. And as soon as people start to see that value, it will become habit, and they will, of course, gain confidence and continue to have that clarity as well.
Okay, so what can this look like in practice? I mean, we've seen these principles deliver really measurable results in a large public sector Microsoft adoption service program that we ran a year ago. So with this client, a structured adoption service helped users build confidence and apply Copilot to real work. And the program reported a £3.35 return for every £1 spent. And 94% of the users reported better collaboration and efficiency with over 21,000 hours saved. I mean, that's great results there. So we were delighted with that. I think that the important point is that the value came from more than just access. The service included confidence building sessions, peer-led community support, targeted help that was really based on real life scenarios and work that people were actually doing, the ability to consult with our team, get answers when things started to get sticky and stuck, and that effectively was what enabled them to make these tremendous time savings on that program. So I think the takeaway here really is that AI value depends on people, on readiness, and on adoption. I'm thinking about leaders. So I think the challenge is about more than just explaining the tool. It's answering those human questions around the tool. So people want to know why the organisation is using AI. They want to understand what it means for their day-to-day work. And it will be different for everyone. They want clarity on what is safe to use and what's allowed. They need policy. They want to know how their role might change and what support they'll receive to go through that change. And perhaps most importantly, they want to understand where their judgment still matters. Research also suggests that leaders and employees may see AI's impact quite differently. So the MBER paper that Steve referred to earlier found that leaders expected AI to reduce employment slightly over the next 3 years, while employees expected AI to increase employment slightly. And that perception gap really matters. So leaders may not have every answer yet, but people still need direction. They need honesty and a sense that the organisation is approaching AI with care. Leaders don't need to pretend they have every answer. No one has all of the answers at the moment, and the pace of change is tremendous. I think a more honest message is often really credible. So a useful leadership message might sound something like this: we're learning what AI means for our organisation, we'll explore it responsibly, we'll support people to build confidence, but human judgment remains central. And that kind of message gives people direction without over-promising. So it's okay for leaders to say when something is still uncertain. What matters is being clear about the direction of travel, what's known, and what will happen next. People will also need regular updates. Trust can fade very, very quickly when communication stops after launch. So that constant communication drumbeat and bringing people up to date is absolutely critical. So the aim really is to help people see AI adoption as a shared learning journey rather than something that's being done to them. And the tone really matters here. People are much more likely to trust leaders who are honest, keep people informed, and stay clear about where human judgment still matters. The 5 key takeaways from today. AI changes how work gets done, changes how work starts, how outputs are reviewed, and where judgment is applied. Steve talked us through that very eloquently. And access does not equal value. Organisations need readiness, guidance, and changed ways of working. People need clarity, confidence, and guidance, and different people will respond in different ways. And Archie talked us through that very, very eloquently. And human judgment remains central. AI can support work, but people still need to guide, to question, and to improve the output. And finally, leaders set the tone. How leaders talk about AI and model its use and support their people will shape whether adoption feels confusing, threatening, or frankly, indispensable.